everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode here, Jolly SEO's TLDR with Emina. Thank you so much, Emina. Emina is the head of digital marketing at Vixen Digital. And today we wanted to talk agency horror stories, but also what can go right at agencies too, right?
Yeah, there's lots of horror stories, but there's also a lot of great things about agencies. So
Totally. Well,
thank you for having me.
no, I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet you here. And I mean, you work at an agency, I co-run an agency. Pretty much every new client that comes through the doors for us anyway is already traumatized by having had like two or three bad experiences. Is that similar for you?
Yeah, I mean, it is not the majority, but a big chunk of clients. I mean, my personal story is I come from in-house. I've never worked for an agency before now, and I never wanted to work for an agency, partly because I was the one hiring agencies and I was extremely picky. I was on a blacklist for every agency because I used to run like RFPs, like properly scoring and weighted scores and all of that stuff, because I wanted somebody who will complement my knowledge rather than
Yeah.
try and sell me the basics. But I'm at an agency now, an agency I've worked with when I was in-house across several companies. And I thought, why not give it a go? So I definitely sympathize with the clients a
Yeah.
lot because I was in that position.
Well, actually, this talk is going to be better than I was expecting then. If you were all in-house just before this, that's the viewpoint we want to represent here, right? So we work with clients. I haven't been in-house myself, so this will be to steal your word. We'll be able to complement each other a little bit, I hope, because we don't have too much time, but that's how we like it. That's why it's called TLDR. We wanted to go over three main topics, right? And the first I think everyone can sympathize with, which is overpromising and then underdelivering, right? I'm curious, you said you had a really good RFP system, but even so, there had to be some who kind of slipped through the cracks somehow, like sold you the moon, or maybe not quite the moon, but sold pretty well. What comes to mind? I mean, we won't name names, right?
No, of course, it's not about kind of taking agencies down. And, now when I'm agency side, I can understand some of the things that I couldn't understand before. I now understand. The flip side of that is over delivering, which
Yeah.
now I understand why that's a problem. And I never understood why that was a problem when I was in-house. But yeah, there's always agencies. There's those that are very clearly selling you pork pies. People who say, "Oh, I can get you, ranking number one in search for term blah blah blah." Doesn't really matter. Even if you can do it, you likely can't do it depending on the industry. But even if you can do it, what does that give me? Those are not the KPIs that I'm interested in. And then there's these kind of people who are somewhere in the middle. So we always say to clients, I can't promise you anything.
Yeah.
I can try, and depending on what your goals are, I can try and get you closer to those goals if you're looking to increase traffic by 30% in the next or 50% in the next 6 months, or you're looking to increase conversions for SEO. I can try looking at your targets to get you there. And I'll be honest, if you have a target that's like really ridiculous, I'm going to say, look, I'm sorry, mate, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of being honest with clients, really. But there's those middle ones that are a little bit, like I can tell, but I know a lot of clients can't really tell. And I see it all the time where they've been promised something that doesn't really make sense, particularly when it comes to technical SEO. So because it's so like a bit of a black art,
Yeah.
people kind of sell it as something that it's not. They say, "Oh, it's your technical. I'll get you there because if I sort out your technical, all of a sudden you're going to rank and you're going to get all of this traffic and stuff like that," which most of the time is not true.
I hadn't thought about that with technical, but like you said, it's just too opaque, right? There's too many opportunities for that.
Mm.
The other one that I see a lot, even if they're not promising it, they're delivering traffic increases, but it's totally irrelevant traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's poop.
yeah, it's we have a finance client who is so savvy, and I really like working with him. And he just came back to us after a couple year hiatus. We only do offsite, right? So actually, we're guilty of that as well. Although we make sure to disclaim that, like, listen, we there's a lot we don't control. We're just your offsite partner, so you've got to have a lot of other things working right for you if you want to make an ROI off your investment with us. But when it's someone managing your whole SEO strategy and they're intentionally bringing in totally irrelevant traffic, like our finance client was like, yeah, the Ahrefs graph looks great because that's what I wrote to him. I was like, oh, so happy for you, but it's all about cats, and we're a finance company, so it doesn't. It we were a great case study for that guy, but not really good business for us. So it's
Yeah, but you get it for offsite as well. So like, so I presume you're doing like link building and digital
mhm.
PR and all of that stuff. So one of my pet peeves with, so we don't do a lot of that. We do a bit of it, but I'm always very careful because you're in an even worse situation because it's just for that one thing, it's very difficult to get the results if you're just looking at that in a vacuum.
Oh yeah.
Um, One of the things that I had a prospect meeting the other day and they wanted to offsite as well, and I said to them, look, I'd personally, I don't believe in like outreach that much. I believe in like digital PR. I can do a bit of taking the workload off of you, like brand mentions and all of that stuff. We can do that, and I think that does work, but it's tough. I do not envy you when it comes to like offsite stuff, and
No, I
that's
hear
the
you.
thing. It's quite difficult. It needs to be a blend of strategies that you're employing for that to be effective, and it needs to work together and blend together. So it's almost impossible to say, oh yeah, I'll help you get all of this traffic with like just offsite. And I remembered now what I wanted to also ask you. So one of the things that's my pet peeve with offsite is building links in spaces that are not relevant to your business. I would rather have one link from an industry that I know has the right audience than having 10 links from random industries just focusing on like stuff like domain authority and stuff like that. How do you approach it?
This is a great topic. I approached it for years with my head in the sand intentionally. I thought, let me just not, I just don't want to think about this. I don't want to, just don't talk to me about this. But it's obvious that's not sustainable. And so, what we have done for the last few years is we have the same outreach strategy, but two product tiers. One tier is a much better fit for people who, because as you know, in SEO, it's a pretty broad spectrum. There's people who believe it's all about the site metrics. There's people who believe it's all about the relevancy. There's kind of everywhere in between. And we have one tier. At first, we thought our tiers were really about the site metrics, the more expensive one or the more powerful websites. And it still looks that way on our website today. It's February 2025, but we're about to reconfigure it again because it's more and more about relevancy as far as
Mhm.
some people are willing to pay premium prices so that they're sure it's going to be related to their brand. And some people are not interested in that and say, look, these are good enough links for me. I'm not really focused on relevancy. So, as the service provider, to be honest, I do have an opinion, but I feel it's more important that I deliver, especially when the client knows what they're talking about, what they want. If they don't know what they want,
Yeah.
that's where it gets dangerous. And honestly, as a link builder, I typically don't want to work with those clients because I think they're starting at the wrong place. If you're starting your SEO journey, if you don't have a pretty concrete opinion about that topic, then you probably shouldn't work with a premium outreach service like us. If you're really focused on links, you should go to some marketplace and do that kind of thing because we're too
Yeah,
expensive. Right.
exactly. That's the thing. And that was one of the learnings that thinking about when I was in house and now that I'm agency, I was a little bit surprised that sometimes people just want you to do the basics right for them. That's what they want.
Yeah.
Should you be, because I'm always like, should I even offer that? Because I know that in my mind, it doesn't really work. But as long as you're transparent with the client and you say, okay, right, this is what I would, this is how we approach it. And I will always approach it quality over quantity, no matter the service that you're buying. That's one of our like main values. But these are all of the, you can hire me to do like brand mentions and to do outreach and not to just focus on, to focus on volume. But as you say, it's not, you pay me because I think about these things.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like just a marketplace. I will think about these things. It's important to, even in those, because when you dig, when you kind of start digging around what people are actually thinking, they always do want the quality. Nobody's going to turn around and say, oh yeah, no, build me these really crappy links. I'm really happy with that. Nobody is. But it's a matter of digging into it and then saying, okay, so you can pay me this much and I will be thinking about these things. I will be building, I might have a bit of a more of a looser kind of adjacent industries rather than the same industry or whatever it may be. If that's what you want, if that's what you're asking for. But in general, I wouldn't like, it's not in me to just say, yeah, sure, pay me for me to put these links everywhere and anywhere just to get a link, because personally, I just don't believe in it. But
Yeah.
some people do want it. I've had situations where clients were just like, oh no, don't worry about that. We just want the links.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the best.
I think that's where over time you're building a reputation, right? You're attracting a certain type of clients that are willing to pay for that. Our version of that is we don't do paid link building. We just turn away so much business because they want links to specific product pages with specific keywords, and we can't do that since we don't pay for the links. So it's really a struggle when people want to pay you to do things, but I think
Yeah.
long term, Vixen will be better off. Your own personal brand will
Yeah,
be better off.
exactly, exactly. And it's not like, I can understand why there's this like push to use strategies like paid links and stuff, because these days it's quite difficult. This is why I'm saying outreach for me is a tricky one, because
Yeah.
the reality is most people want to get paid to put your link in, and that's not what I want to be doing. I don't want to be. And then when you stop doing that, then it's about the content. It goes back to what kind of content do you have, because the chances of, you have to have something incredibly good for somebody to put a link and not charge you for it. And so the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem has become, I come from journalism, it's the same with journalists. If you don't have a story, you're not getting in there most of the time. You're not really, unless you have like a connection or whatever, you're not getting in there. It's the same with the digital ecosystem these days. They are all very much, what's in it for me? What's the story here? So as long as you have a good story, then that's great, but then it's not going to be cheap.
No,
So
I say we don't pay for links. So what does that mean? We have very high labor costs. It costs us, and I haven't done a comparison with other agencies. I'm curious if you comment on this, but it costs us over $1,000 per article we get to publish for all the labor parts involved. Because even in an age where you could turn to ChatGPT to do content production, we can't because, like you said, we've got to be paying great writers, actually.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
it's just a balancing act.
exactly. We had two others on our list.
I know,
Shall
and
we
we're going to
move
run
on
out
to
of time,
the,
everyone. I
yeah,
think,
it's
uh,
interesting.
look, we were talking about doing right by people. One of the ones we wanted to talk about is secretly outsourcing, right? I think that's such
Yeah.
a funny but sad topic to go over. I can say from our part, the temptation is there, right? The temptation is there. And it's such a fine line, you could say, in theory, because we have contractors and aren't they their own business owner? Couldn't we just maybe find someone? I'd say that the part where it gets very tempting for us is when we want to try a new service, when we don't have capacity in-house and we want to test the waters with a couple clients who are existing and we say, let's hire this other agency and learn from them and test this service offering. But I can say, unfortunately, by trial and error, we have learned anytime you go down this route, you burn yourself and your client. It's really bad for your brand reputation when you engage in outsourcing while putting on a front that you're doing all the work in-house.
Yeah, but the thing is, where is that line? So you were saying about contractors. So we're quite open. We've had clients come in where we have outsourced writing, for example.
Yeah.
And I have said, look, the writing, I don't think you should be paying me to do your writing because I'm very expensive.
Well, you're
I
in
have
Brighton.
this freelancer. Yeah, I have this freelancer who will do it for this cost. But what you do want to pay me for is the stuff that happens before and after that piece is written, because that cheaper freelancer will not be doing that for you. So it's kind of this open collaboration where we have trusted freelancers, but we do a lot of work before and a lot of work after, which is what the client might be paying.
Well, the
It's a
key you
tricky
said
one.
is transparency.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tricky one because I agree. Sometimes you have a contractor. Also, sometimes I can understand when it happens to deal with capacity issues that are short term, because I'm not going to tell the client, oh, it hasn't happened. But in my mind, if I think about it, if you had a hypothetical situation where somebody left the job, and I have a client and I'm trying to hire somebody in house, and there's that period of kind of where I need somebody to help
Yeah,
me out.
sorry, it'll be 3 months, then we'll get to work for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even existing clients. I don't want to kind of disturb the client and make them panic over the fact that, because I'm doing the work as well. It's never happened, but I would imagine that if it did happen, I'd probably not tell the client because
I
it's very
respect
short
that.
term. So,
But
I would
before,
say if it's ongoing, if it's like a few weeks or a month till I hire somebody, then yeah, I probably wouldn't say, but
well,
I
you
would be
worked
looking at
in-house.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you would be looking, yeah. Yeah, no, well, you have to scrutinize. I was going
Oh
to say
God,
you
yeah.
worked in-house, so you know one of the big blunders I made for a couple years straight as a service provider, we used to bill only for the live links. We still say you pay for live links, but now we charge the same amount every month because we force ourselves to deliver. Before, we used to give ourselves a free pass. We would say, well, we're only paying for what's live, so it's okay if we don't hit the goal each month because we're not charging for it. But you worked in-house and you know that must have been hell on our clients because every month the budget was different. They weren't getting the results we had promised them. They likely would have preferred if we had said, look, we have serious capacity issues for the next 2 to 3 months. We just need to turn to this other vendor and get their help. We just wanted to be
Yeah.
honest with you about this.
Yeah, no, it would have, if we were talking about a very long period of time, then definitely. But because I was in-house, if somebody was getting a freelancer in just to do a technical audit, for example, that is on the books and, absolutely needs to be done in the next couple of weeks, and there's capacity issues in the agency, I don't necessarily need to know that because I know that I trust that agency enough to find somebody who's incredibly good, which isn't easy.
Yeah.
Secondly, there's a lot of QAing that happens. I would imagine that they would be QAing the hell out of that. So it's not like they're not doing anything, but only in those like very edge cases would I say, okay, do you really need to like freak out the client? I don't know. I mean, it never happened. Maybe I would feel too guilty and I would say it, which might actually be the case because I always do.
Look, this podcast theme is very timely. Amina has to roll to a client meeting in about 30 seconds, I guess. Normally, I love to ask, is there anything I forgot to ask that you think I should? Maybe we need a part two. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I really appreciate your time today. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh, Craig, it was great. I mean, I love chatting with you, particularly because you seem to be a link builder that I actually you know,
We're trying over
which doesn't
here.
happen a lot. See you later. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.